I like to start with an amazing fact. Have you heard of Baron Fabian von Schlabbendorf? That's not his whole name. His whole name was Fabian Ludwig George Adolf Kurt von Schlabbendorf. How'd you like to have that handle on your keychain? He was born in Germany in 1907, very bright, well-educated, and was making his way up in the professional field when World War II broke out. Because of his wisdom, they drafted him into the Nazi forces and made him an officer. But he was convinced that Hitler was mad and he was destroying the country and Europe. So he became part of the resistance. And one time when Hitler was visiting an army base, Schlabbendorf put a bomb on Hitler's plane. It was a time bomb, but it failed to go off. Well, pretty soon there was an investigation and they found him, arrested him, tortured him to try to get him to turn in the other conspirators, and he would not talk. So they sentenced him to a firing squad. He was brought into this courtroom filled with people, officers and witnesses and everybody that was telling him what a traitor he was, and they sentenced him to death. Well, because it was now 1945 and the war was in its full fury, they weren't going to put him on death row. They marched him out of the courtroom to execute him by firing squad that same day. But as they were marching him out of the courtroom, fire alarms, air raid sirens began to sound, and before anybody could take cover, a bomb made a direct hit on the courthouse. And it killed everybody in the courthouse, except Schlabbendorf. The one man who had just been accused and condemned to die for really trying to save people's lives was the only one that lived. All his accusers were gone. Well, he escaped briefly. They eventually apprehended him. They put him in Dachau, POW camp, but he was still alive when the Allies came, and he was freed. Well, the rest of the story is he went on to become a judge in Germany. So the one who was judged and condemned became the judge. Talk about a reversal of fortune. There was a day when Jesus stood before Pontius Pilate, and when he stood before Caiaphas the high priest, and Jesus was condemned. Don't you think they're going to be surprised when Jesus comes and they must stand before him? The Bible says the day is coming when every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Now, we're going to begin our study tonight in Revelation chapter 20, and I'm going to just read the first few verses with you and do my best to go through this with you and cover as much information as possible. It says, "Then I saw," Revelation 20, verse 1, "I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand, and he laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. These are similar words you find in Revelation 12. The serpent, devil, Satan. He's bound with a chain. The apostles say the devils are bound in chains of darkness. Satan is now bound in this world. Once he could roam free through the universe, he was one of God's highest angels. They were the ministering spirits, but Satan and 1/3 of the angels that followed him have now been really confined to this world. And it says they're bound for 1,000 years. Now, you maybe have heard the expression, the millennium. The Bible talks about this millennium. Well, it doesn't really use the word millennium. It just calls it 1,000 years. Millennium is a composite of a couple of Latin words, millennium, and it just is the teaching of the 1,000 years that you find in Revelation chapter 20.